Welcome to episode 84, so second episode of 2023, season 4. It's been a while, and V's one of my OG friends from lockdown, I think. Yeah.
2020.
2020.
So we've been friends for around 3 years now, but this is the first time we've actually sat down.
It's bad there.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, we're doing the same course, Bachelor's of Journalism at RMIT. It's kind of like deja vu, but in a good sense, because yeah, I remember doing the Bulldogs leadership program, and yeah, some fun memories there. And it's one of the first topics we're going to cover today, V. So maybe touch on your experience and kind of what we did with WBYLMentalkings.
So in 2020, I was enrolled into a program with the Western Bulldogs Community Foundation. It's a youth leadership program, and I had met Jerry in it because we had teamed up. I think we were exploring the topic of mental health. And so we decided to set up a mental health page, and we ended up raising, I think, over $1,000.
Yeah, we did. That was
to
crazy.
A charity. Yep. Basically honing in on young male mental health, and especially during the time of lockdown and COVID as well. So we were working on this project virtually, but obviously, I guess the inspiration for it was very personal, and we wanted to sort of connect with our peers that way. Yeah.
And with the mental health aspect, I guess it's also like with women as well. And we're saying how, I don't know, like with lockdowns and all that, we didn't feel as connected, but nowadays you feel more connected because obviously there's no more restrictions, like uni's full-time on campus. So kind of how does that feel? Like obviously your year 12 was mainly online, and now uni being like in person.
Yeah. So I had a severely impacted year 12, and I did try to assert myself in as much like co-curricular leadership as possible, but obviously it was hard to gain a lot out of that being at home. So when it came time for uni, I was trying to apply myself as well, but I think a lot of people did struggle getting back into the classroom and sort of building some rapport with others, because it's been hard not interacting with people for that long. And then you're sort of just pushed back into crowds of people and sort of forced to mingle, which honestly, for maybe like extroverted people, that might be a good thing. But I understand that could be really intimidating as well. But I've made a lot of friendships and a lot of connections from my time at both unis that I've been at. So, yeah. Yeah,
and we'll touch on that very shortly, actually. But going back to RMIT, you told me like literally a few minutes ago that you started like mid-sem, with 7 people, and like that kind of feels like a tutoring tight-knit group in a sense as well, but it's a bit different.
Yeah, I really got to know my classmates, especially in that understanding journalism class, which was our main stream or our introductory course when we got to RMIT. At first a little bit intimidating, but a lot of the mid-year students are obviously going through the same things. Like you're freshly new into a course where the cohort has already begun and is like well into their course and is pretty well versed in sort of the journalistic basics. So it's good that I had a smaller group who we could all like hang out, go to the pub if we wanted to, just after class.
Well, the Oxford Scholar.
Yeah, the usual. Yeah.
No, that's good. And going back to Melbourne Uni, because you started there, what was so different like there compared to at RMIT?
Yeah, so I was doing a Bachelor of Arts at Melbourne Uni, which is sort of like a broader degree, and a lot of people go through the arts to get to like a master's course. And so journalism was always in the back of my mind when I graduated uni. But actually, in fact, like I had physiotherapy. I had wanted to be a physio for the longest time, just anything in the sporting world. And for some reason, just throughout COVID, that changed and morphed into journalism and sports journalism. So I decided to do arts just in case I did want to sort of change.
Like later on.
Later on, it would be easier to transfer and whatnot. But I guess midway through the degree, or the first year of the degree, I just found that I wasn't happy. It wasn't really right for me. And I think naturally there's this perception that UniMelb is a very competitive space and environment. And I feel like I can confirm that to some degree.
It is,
especially my arts course, a lot of the people there were gunning for a law degree after. It's like called a Juris Doctor, and you need a very high score to get into that from the arts degree. Personally, that wasn't what I was aiming for, so it was kind of
so that's like with the GPAs and like all that.
Your WAM's got to be really high, your GPA's got to be like tip top, and like, I mean, I understand that and all, but I think personally there was an easier and more practical route as well. If I was to do journalism at UniMab, it would have taken 5-6 years, and I wouldn't have gained any practical experience until I got to the Masters. Whereas RMIT, like, first year thrown into it, you're sort of already forced to go out, interview, and do all the good journalistic stuff that, you know, looks good on your resume and will eventually get you a job after in the industry. So,
well, even with Q&A at the moment, like, you have to like write out tweets and then you get barraged online.
Are you
sometimes.
Enjoying that?
Like, I'm enjoying it, but then when you get barraged online saying, "Oh, no content at all," it's not fun.
I really actually enjoyed that. I think. Do you have Josie?
Yeah, she's our like main lecturer for
she's grouse. Like, I really enjoyed like Thursday nights. We had Thursday night Q&As. Just late at night. Just typing on a Teams chat with her and tweeting out to the world.
It's good fun. And with RMIT, there's like so many parts to it. Like with the community organisations, like as you know, I'm with SIN, but like you're with JSOC, the Journalism Society, and they're just like a good group of people. I've met a few people now. And also, let's touch on the internship with the Ministry of Sport. Like, how did that come about, and like, what have you learned so far?
Yeah, so as Joe said before, I'm still in my first year of journalism, but I sort of wanted to branch out, you know, get my foot in the door in some industries which I guess are historically like kind of hard to get into, and the sports industry is pretty competitive. It's a very saturated one. And so I was sort of scouting for internships and ways to actually start getting my writing I guess published and starting to get involved with contacts and whatnot. I've joined this community, they're called SportsGrad. I'm not sure if you've heard of them.
I have, yeah. Ryan and
Ruben, great. I joined them just in hopes of making connections. I wasn't really expecting anything out of it right off the bat, and I think that was in December. By the time January rolled around, they had posted on one of their chats this internship opportunity with the Ministry of Sport, and it was linked through, again, LinkedIn. I was just worried because you can see how many people apply to a job at one time.
It's like 118 have applied.
I think there was like 30-something applicants, and there was some like background stats as well. Like, this person has a bachelor's degree, or most of them are, you know, postgraduate journalism students.
Like RMIT alumni.
So I was like, I don't know if I've got enough experience for this, but I was reading through the job description and they just wanted someone who was ambitious, keen to learn, and had an interest in sport. And I felt that, you know, I had nothing to lose if I did apply. So I was actually encouraged by a friend as well. I put an application in, not expecting anything. I was fully expecting to be just ghosted. I was like, you know what, that's fine with that. Like, I've tried. I got an email contact from the editor named Matt, who reached out for an interview. A week later, I think, I ended up having a Zoom interview because they're a publication based in Brisbane. And then I found out I was one of 2 interns who had actually got the job, the 9-week internship, which is just insane because like I had never expected to be able to land that at 19.
Literally.
The way that I fully went into it, just expecting nothing. Like, I had just prepped myself and lowered my expectations. But it's been really fun. I've just actually finished up the 9 weeks with them, and I've learnt so much, you know, from publishing 5 upwards to 10 articles per day, like 2 times per week, you know, working remotely and just contacting, liaising with media communications, and just to now being on like the AFL's media list, all of the teams and whatnot as well, which is just bloody insane. The contacts have been really good. My editor has been great, and I'm sure there are many great opportunities to come out of that as well. Yeah,
that's an incredible story, V. Literally, just get on LinkedIn and apply. That's the main piece of advice.
Honestly, put yourself out there because you genuinely have nothing to lose. You know, and if anything, you've put your name out there. If another opportunity arises, your name is still there. People can see that you're trying again and again. All right, so like any experience is good anyways. And this was a 9-week unpaid internship, which is a pretty long period of time. And I know a lot of people advise against doing unpaid internships that long, but I was just happy to get the experience as well. Like, I've learned a lot from that. Yeah,
like you covered the F1, like footy. Lots of cool stories. And with that, like, how do you write 5 articles in a day? Like, do the ideas just like pop up? Or
whenever I tell my friends this, they're just so shocked. They're like, I don't know how you just sit down and just whip out 5 articles. honestly, it took a while for me to actually get to that because I am someone who experiences writer's block all the time.
Yeah,
I will
so
sit
do
and
I.
just stare at a computer or like a press release and not know what to do with it. But I guess like over time, practice makes perfect. I think that goes with anything.
Just build it up,
Yeah. So I mean, like the first couple of weeks of the internship, I was writing maybe 2 to like 3-ish articles a day, building up to 5, and then a lot of it was like wrapping media releases. So obviously being on like a media or a PR list of any sporting organization, you get the news first, and it's your job as a journalist to sort of interpret that legally, like ethically, properly, you know, use the media, write it
like
up.
code of ethics.
Yeah. I don't want to get sued this early on before my career's like jumped off. Yeah, and then eventually you just get really used to it. And not that there's a formula to writing, because obviously everything is different, but you do find your favorite ways of approaching different topics and how to like format and lay out your articles. So yeah, practice.
And I got one last one for journalism, V. So I know like you're really into like the sports journalism side, like similar to me. Are there any other aspects you want to delve into in terms of like politics or I don't know, pop culture?
Yeah, it does change day to day. I feel like I wake up and I'm like, you know what, maybe today I'll be a feature writer, like pop culture, whatnot. I do enjoy pop culture, film, and current affairs, news, general reportage, and that was what I wanted to get into initially, which is also partly why I went to Melbourne, because I was planning to major in like international relations, politics, that side of things.
Oh yeah, with the arts,
But in terms of sport, I think I still get very just intimidated by how male dominated it is, which obviously that's changing. We've got plenty of great female journalists who are in that sphere, commentators, writers, digital journalists, just taking up space, which is amazing. But yeah, I know that diversity in terms of like representation culturally, but also like gender diversity in media is something that I really want to contribute to and I want to see a lot more of. So stepping into those fields, I guess that's my motivation. I am like a big writer. I think I'm not sure how I'll fare with broadcast, but definitely with sport, I do want to get into like sport writing and whatnot.
No, it's awesome story, yeah. Like, I feel like writing needs to improve for myself. So, like, broadcasting is, like, I think there to an extent.
But you've got the knowledge and the passion, which is great.
No, it's awesome.
Yeah.
We'll flip it around again. We'll go networking now. So, like, every time I go on my phone, I pull up, like, LinkedIn or something, and then I see, like, V, like, reposting something. It's just, like, insane. Like, how do you do it? What are your networking, like, 101s?
Again, this was like uncharted territory. Like if you asked me this time last year to go out networking or to just approach someone or even just send a message and reach out, I would have told you absolutely not. Like, why would I do that? But again, like as I've come to find out, a lot of these industries are highly competitive. But in saying that, it's not like a big scary world. There are people out there who are willing to help you and experienced people who want to pass down that knowledge to up-and-coming journalists, for example. So, you know, you're not any interference for them and you shouldn't apologise for taking up space or for trying to actually chase your goals. I think people do really admire that. And they tend to gravitate towards helping you. So, like, sending a message to someone on LinkedIn or just finding mutuals who may have gone to the same uni as you, may have a similar background, or any contacts who could possibly help you. Obviously, you don't want to impose too much on them, but I'm sure most people are pretty receptive and open to, I guess, aspiring journalists because they understand what it's like to be in your position. So, yeah.
Although the interviews were tough to reach out, like for one of the hard news stories, like people just left me on like scene and all that. Yeah,
tell me about it. I actually had a recent interview, or I was communicating with a PR company who was actually linking me to Red Bull Oracle's racing team, F1, back when they were in Melbourne like a couple of weeks ago. And they were organising an interview for me and like a grid tour. I would be able to sort of explore and have a comprehensive tour of their garage and everything, which is insane. But I was meant to interview Red Bull's team strategist. I think she's their head team strategist, Hannah Schmitz, and she's one of the pioneering women in motorsport as well. So it would have been such a great interview. I was so happy. It was 2 days notice, so I had 2 days to sort of plan an interview, how I was going to get there. I had to like skip uni and whatnot. And they had just told me to be on call. And so I had this like deep gut instinct feeling that something like scheduling,
right. Yeah.
just wasn't going to go through. And so I was just constantly berating this PR guy, being like, hey, do you have any updates for me? Like any passes or any time allocations, how I'm going to get there? And then on the morning of the day, he just told me to be on call. And I'm like, that is very inconvenient because I've just had to skip 2 days worth of uni. And obviously it was in Albert Park, which is a fair distance from where we are. So I'm like, I will just have to wait in a cafe in the city until they call me to come over.
Oh, that's pretty,
Eventually, the PR guy, who we shall not name, he was like, I'm
no
sorry.
name and shaming.
I'm not mad at him. I'm over that now. Maybe I was like a little bit upset, but I'm okay now. He was just like, I'm so sorry, but we've just had scheduling interferences. We'll add you to like our top like PR contacts for next year's OzGP. So that we organise an interview well in advance. And I'm like, I really do appreciate that. I think that's something you've got to learn in journalism. It's never your fault, and rejection is such a normal thing to experience.
Yeah, 100%.
You just shouldn't take it personally because it's not a reflection of your organisation, your skill, or whether they want to talk to you. It's just scheduling conflicts most of the time, and
100%,
it doesn't work out. And honestly, it's a good lesson to like learn early on, and for your assignments as well, like first year it can be discouraging, but honestly, as long as you get used to it, conditioned to it, and I'm sure like interviews will come flowing your way in the future.
Fingers crossed. Awesome. Let's go into sports now. We touched on the Doggies earlier. I wrote here on the show notes 2016 and 2021. Obviously they're two different things. You're like a diehard Doggy supporter. And interesting enough, I was there 2016 witnessing it all. So tell me all about it.
Yeah, so I've been a Doggy supporter ever since I can remember. I think it's my 15th or 16th year of membership this year. So I've sort of been like indoctrinated into it, but growing up on the west side, like I was happy to anyways, and I was always involved in the community stuff.
Like OzKick programs and all that.
No, I wish I was. But yeah, I've always helped like facilitate, for example, like school programs with like the Western Bulldogs and whatnot. And so like growing up, being able to actually go to the 2016 grand final, witness that all genuine fairy tale. And I think I was at like such a good age to I guess experience that. I think I would have been
like 12,
13 around. Maybe I didn't appreciate it as much then, but I had a sense of awareness, and it was a pretty significant year. I think everyone was barracking for us. Like
100%,
everyone loves a good like fairy tale story, a good underdog story. So that was good. 2021, stark contrast. 2016, I was sitting in the great MCG witnessing history. 2021 COVID, I was sitting in my living room watching us play out over in Perth. And you know what? The first half we were wrapped, but I think as a Doggy supporter, I've always had this sort of centered gut feeling to just, keep your expectations too low. Don't get ahead of yourself too early, because there's just been a history of like slight inconsistencies, and you just never know what team is going to wake up. And so, it was a bit of a depressing year, and I think Marcus Bontempelli that year, the Brownlow, he really did deserve it.
He got robbed,
I feel like, I know Bevo had said this as well, that he really felt like the team had lost it for Bont, and if they had won, then maybe he would have had a chance, but Batyr is great anyway, so.
And that, it shows a contrast as well, because making two grand finals, one's like the winning feeling, and then one's the complete opposite. Like, with North, I've never kind of experienced that. We haven't made the grand final in like 25 years.
You go through like constant pain, then at least it's like level, and if they do really well, you're shocked in a great way. If they don't do as well, at least, you're fine.
And with the finals, I went to like Sydney, Melbourne last year, and before that, it was like 7 years in between finals, because like North haven't made it in so long. But just quickly, how do you think the Doggies will go this year? Because it's like up and down, topsy-turvy with like the tall forward line with Jamara, Lob and whatnot.
I think it did take, obviously, the couple of first rounds losing to adjust to that tall forward line, because that's not something that we've employed in the past.
Well, no one plays like that anymore.
Exactly, right? In today's game. I'm surprised that we sort of went that way,
Yeah.
because every year you can just hear the Doggies fan base scream for us to actually focus on defence, because we've got a pretty good packed midfield, and we have for a couple of years,
Yeah.
right? But it's always the back line that everyone wants us to focus on in terms of like drafting and trades and whatnot. We always just seem to grab some forwards, and obviously we have an influx of them, like so many to interchange. The first couple of rounds, very discouraging. It kind of reminded me of like the 2012, 2013.
Oh,
like,
it can't be that bad.
Brendan McCartney, maybe I was getting ahead of myself,
Yeah.
but that beginning of the year, I was like, this is oddly reminiscent, like deja vu,
Yeah.
not in a great way. But obviously we've started to pick up a bit, and I'm pretty hopeful. We're actually like training the Doggies. They're based out at Skinner Reserve, which is a park, like my local park.
So like west side.
Yeah, like 5 minutes from my house. Whenever I played sport in high school, it was on that oval.
Oh,
So it's
jeez.
pretty surreal to just like walk past a neighborhood, like going on a run
You can,
or a
like,
jog or something.
Yeah, see them train.
Exactly,
Yeah.
because it's an open public field. It's not like Wooden Oval where it's enclosed closed training. You just can't film and whatnot. They've got like strict rules around that, obviously. But yeah, no, it's pretty cool to just walk down the street and see all these players like kicking the ball around and trying to peek into what their gameplay strategy is. But yeah, we'll see. I'm hopeful. I think the one thing I just resent as a Doggy supporter is that we can never sort of finish off really strong, like top of the table when we go into finals. We do finish off the year strong when it comes time to actually play, like August, September, whatever. But it's always like 6 to 8.
Yeah,
and it's always the underdog story.
Well, yeah. There was one year you finished top 4 though.
Yeah.
Would have been 2021 as well. Yeah, top 2 with Melbourne.
I feel like, I don't know, we fare better with like the underdog story for some reason. Just coming from behind. How are you feeling about your boys this year?
Oh, well, I'll tell you the story now. We were talking earlier that like I made a bet with one of the boys from Sports Desk that if Carlton won, I'd wear a Carlton jersey and vice versa, and well, Carlton ended up winning by like 4 goals. So on Monday I have to front up. But I feel like the first 2 rounds were really good. Like first 4, we're like in all 4 games, not getting blown out. Harry Sheasel.
Oh, he's great.
I love the way he plays. Yeah. You know when you're getting old when that's your draft year, because Sheasel was like the same age
we're
as me.
older than the draftees, which is insane.
It's insane though. I think Clarko's just like, you know, built us up so well like through preseason. He's just like, he's like the god of footy or something. Like
he's like a multiple-time Premiership coach for a reason. So
it's
honestly,
crazy.
I'm really excited to see what comes out of North.
Yeah.
Yeah, exciting times.
Well, hopefully finals in a few years. Not this year. I'm going to say it like that, but yeah. Oh, it's good. And to wrap up with sports, are there any other sports like you kind of like follow throughout the year as well? You want to touch on?
I sort of, dip into like sports generally most of the time. I'm a big swimming fan.
Yeah. I used to be a swim teacher, yeah?
I used to be a swim teacher, so I used to be a swimmer, and then became a swim teacher, accredited, and I did that throughout high school, which was really fun. And yeah, I do follow it. Obviously, being Australian, like we've got such a good caliber of swimmers. Turn on the Olympics, the whole of Australia is behind the swimming team. So something great to follow. F1 is something in like the most recent years that I've started to get into as well. Honestly, a little bit of everything, and I think starting that internship with Ministry of Sport has introduced me to so many different leagues and codes. Like I'd be covering the sail GP, like sailing, which I'd never even followed much before. Delving into a lot of the American codes as well, like
NFL, NBA, or
hockey as well,
NHL,
which is really new, baseball. But it's really interesting, and I really do want to set that goal for myself to sort of get involved and sort of broaden my knowledge across like a wide range of sports. I feel like that'd be interesting.
Yeah, we have a thing called the niche sports thing we cover every now and then in Sports Desk. So, I mean, if you know all about like the NHL and like those types of sports.
They're actually coming to Melbourne, or they're staging 2 NHL preseason games.
The Bruins and someone else, I think.
Which is just insane. But, yeah.
Would you go to one of those games?
Honestly, yeah.
I'd go as well, just to like, I don't know, witness a new sport or something.
Right, it's just so interesting, and like to see sports from different continents and countries sort of expanding, like cricket there's like a new major US cricket league that's opening up this
damn.
June and July, which is insane. And they've drafted a lot of like Aussie players, for example, as well. So it's really cool to see like the globalization of sports and how everyone's sort of getting a taste of them. So yeah, it's an exciting time.
Give it 5-10 years. We got like games coming up, and also the Olympics. That's going to be insane. And we could be working during those. That's just like possibilities.
We're saying it here first now. By the Brisbane Olympic Games and the Com Games, we'll be working in some aspect in either of them.
Because running is such a big factor in those realms as well, so I'm excited. We're calling it here, literally 10 years time.
Exactly, this is like manifesting.
It is.
Speaking it into existence.
You know, one of those like old videos where they do like captions 2023 and then like the same like video 10 years later? It could be us. Who knows?
It will be us.
No, not could. It will. We'll make it a reality. 100%. This one always gets people. We were chatting before air and you were like struggling. The funny stories. Do you have any like you remember from the like community foundation days with Mentalkings or RMIT at the moment?
Actually, now I do remember a funny story from like the men talking / like youth leadership period of time. I think it was approaching near like one of the end sessions because I can't remember how long the program was.
8-9 weeks maybe?
Yeah, so around like a 2-month program. And at the conclusion of it, you would have a graduation where you'd have to read out speeches. And obviously it used to be in person, but because we were on COVID, we had to read our speeches online. And I had just gotten a new laptop, which just wasn't working. I remember reading my speech. I was so nervous about it because I don't know why public speaking back then just wasn't in my realm of things that I was confident in.
I think just unmuting as well, and then everyone has it on mute.
And I remember reading that speech. I'd put so much time and effort into it, and I was honestly really excited to sort of speak because that was something that I was really grateful for, and I don't know, that was a really worthwhile experience for me. So I was going through the middle of my speech, and then I start to look up and I see people like smiling on the monitor on Zoom. Keep in mind there's like 50 odd like other kids in the program
it would have been
just staring, and then I have this gut feeling that my laptop is like glitching out, and I didn't know what was happening. I checked my phone, and halfway through my speech no one can hear anything that's like happened. I don't think anyone like remembers, which is a good thing honestly, because obviously it's like an embarrassing story that is ingrained in me. Honestly, the fact that you did not recall it is a good thing. And I just get like text blowing up my phone from Libby being like, Libby was our other group project partner. She's like, V, something's wrong with your laptop. You sound like a robot. You're glitching out. Like everyone is just trying not to laugh. And my screen was frozen. So I couldn't finish my speech. I could see the faces of some kids just trying not to laugh. And Libby's like, oh, you're frozen right now. Like your laptop's just gone black. We can't see you on the screen, we can't hear you, whatever. So I had to like log out. I never finished my speech, and then I went back in and acted like nothing happened. But it was just so like, it was so disheartening at the time, but I still enjoyed it.
I don't remember that.
That's a good sign, really honestly, because I feel like if anything funny, embarrassing ever happens to you, it tends to be just 10 times more amplified in your mind. But honestly, that just means it wasn't that bad because it wasn't that memorable.
Gotta embrace it. That's a very good funny story. I remember.
It just came to me all of a sudden, like the memories, PTSD, like flashing back.
I got another funny one. It was like the first time I met you in person. Literally, it was like Oz Open. I was going home from work, and when I just hear a name saying Jerry, I'm like, oh, who's that? And then it was you, V. It was pretty funny.
It took me a while to process it was you, because you know when you see someone online, but then seeing them in person is just a completely different thing. And I didn't want to just shout out Jerry to the wrong person and get like an odd look. I can't remember. Maybe it was like a concert, I think, that I was coming back from actually.
Was it Arctic Monkeys maybe? Or
I actually can't remember. It must have been, right? January?
Yeah, it would have been January.
I had just come back from an Arctic Monkeys concert, had the night of my life, and we were going to get food, and for some reason I just walked past Jerry. Like, it was the most random thing ever. And that's when we found out that we were doing the same course and whatnot. And that was the first time we actually met, which is insane. But
No, I'm sure there'll be plenty more meetings if JSOC, because I signed up.
Yeah, good.
So that'll be good. Well, it's all about networks, as you said, so just got to build it up at uni, especially, not just, go through emotions and whatnot.
And it's nice to have like your networks actually be friends rather than just names as well, and getting to know them. Like, I've known you for 3 years now, but like still being able to sit down, like see all the great stuff you're doing as well, and just having friends in the journalism industry is so key, because people make it out to be this malicious competitive sphere
literally.
that's like pitting everyone against each other. And I don't know if there's any merit to these stories. Obviously they would have come from somewhere, but I think that's a very critical view of the journalism industry, and
it's very one-sided.
At a university level, you can see that this cohort is pretty supportive, I would say, from personal experience as well. Same. They're very involved. There's a lot of journalism initiatives, and like if I was at UniMub, for example, I would have never been able to just pop down to a bar and grab a drink with a friend. It was, I think, a lot harder, not hostile in any sense, but there were different sort of levels as well, and playing into, I don't know if you've had like sort of like the West Side versus, not really like West Side versus like Southeast side, but sort of like there were a lot of kids from sort of privileged private school backgrounds, and although we don't want to say like division and whatnot, sometimes it was very easy to feel excluded. Personally, I felt at UniMelb, whereas when I went to RMIT, everyone was extremely open, willing to talk, willing to convene with each other, which is honestly like the support that you need. It's nice to like know that I have people in my corner.
100%. And like touching on that again, before I started my first day, I was like, journalism is going to be like cutthroat. Everyone's going to be like at each other all the time. But it's like the complete opposite. Like everyone gets along really well. Like teachers, tutors, like everyone, even students, so. And
like the relationships with teachers, tutors, lecturers was something I also never had previously. I think that's something that's really special about the journalism cohort. I don't know if it's the same for any other sort of degrees, but here they're so supportive, like contacting them after hours, teachers just following your progress on like Twitter and whatnot, and just
like liking your tweets.
Honestly, it's very sweet, and it's nice to know like even after you graduate they'll probably be following
your tweets
your progress and everything through Twitter. But like I've even seen past graduates from RMIT connecting with me as well, which is just the RMIT journalism community in itself, like alumni to current students. It's so good.
It's awesome. And good segue, V, into advice. So we've touched on like networking and a lot of other stuff, but like for you, what's the best piece of advice maybe someone's ever given you?
Again, I think just go for it. I know that's a very simple, like overheard saying, but genuinely stepping out of your comfort zone, I guess, very intimidating thing, but you have more to gain than you are set to lose, I guess, when it comes to those things. And confidence is something that I think inherently everyone has a source of. You just have to sort of tap into it. And honestly, I've had advice from people. I am naturally not an extroverted person. I think a lot of people perceive me to be. I'm a very like loud, outgoing, but it hasn't always been like this. I think putting myself out there, through like that leadership program, for example, was something out of my comfort zone. But it led me to opportunities such as like being college captain, which I know you were a college captain at your school as well. But when I was in high school 2 years ago, being a college captain and doing all these public speaking opportunities and sort of branching out, I think that's like a really good thing for growth. And a lot of the times I've been told, fake it till you make it. No one can tell if you're faking your confidence. And honestly, a lot of the times your confidence will manifest itself when you sort of act that way and it becomes like natural. But yeah, going outside of your comfort zone, I know that is just a very cliche thing, but underrated. Like more people need to do that, I think. Opportunities are never sort of going to chase you, especially at the inception of your career in like journalism and whatnot as well, or anything in life for that matter. So I guess making the first move. But,
making the first move, that's a takeaway message.
Pretty much.
It's just so interesting because things can change quickly, and you got to take as many opportunities as you can. And even not be afraid to like reach out to that one journo, like if you have any questions, whatnot. So, and
I think like being open to it as well, and not as closed-minded, because that energy that like you put out will often be returned. Like if you were to ask like a journo for something, being like, I'm an aspiring journo, I really appreciate your work, they're often going to be flattered and they're going to want to help you because they understand how tough it is. But yeah, no, just going into everything open-minded. I used to go into everything with like, I'm a very anxious person naturally. So I always had these like preconceived ideas. This is going to go wrong. You know, they're going to think A, B, and C of me.
Like you ruminate it, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And that thing as well, like thinking that people will judge you or perceive you. But honestly, like just being true to yourself, like putting yourself out there, it is hard, but once you start to get used to it, you will reap the benefits. Like you start to see that things do start to come to you. And that's like all these things with like the internship opportunities and, you know, job offers and whatnot. So, yeah. Yeah.
And quickly touching on public speaking, again, I remember year 9, like being so raw with like college captain and all that. It like felt intimidating kind of speaking in public with like school tours and whatnot. And then fast forward to year 12, like reading a graduation speech, for example, it just kind of felt like more natural because like you slowly build your way up. I'm sure you had like instances when you were younger as well that like public speaking, like you just felt like so out of it, and then, you know, as you grow older, I don't know, it feels a lot easier.
Even when I was like in the early years of high school, before maybe I was 17, 18, before like the youth leadership program, honestly that did change a lot for me.
Yeah.
Before then I was even scared to go out to a retail shop and ask the shop clerk if they had this colour in another size.
Oh, damn, yeah.
You know, that social anxiety really got to me. And it wasn't because I knew I couldn't do it or anything. It was more so, oh, what if I come across this way to them? Like I was sort of projecting and being critical on myself before the other person had even had a chance to respond or before I had the opportunity to go up to them. And same thing, like I used to request to do my early high school speeches. I did a lot of like English subjects when I was younger.
Yeah.
I would request to do like class oral presentations one-on-one because I was so anxious. I think leading up to year 10 even, for my assessments, oral presentations, all of them would be graded in front of a class. I would always ask the teacher to reserve a lunchtime for me. And honestly, they were pretty lenient to let me do that. And I would just do the speech one-on-one to a teacher. And often they would be surprised, wondering why I would want to do that. But I just had valued the public perception of myself so much. And honestly, I think that's something that I still do time to time. You just can't help but to think of what others might think of you. But yeah, no, I learnt to go through that, and especially through leadership in high school as well, where there was an instance I remember copping a little bit of flack for maybe like an executive decision that we had made, and you know, everyone's emotions were heightened during lockdown and whatnot. But one thing that one of my teachers or my coordinator had told me was that, especially in leadership, you're looking to earn respect from people. You don't have to be liked from everyone, but as long as you're able to gain the respect from them in the future, they'll understand sort of why you went about it this way or how you communicated with them and whatnot. And I think that like really hit me, the fact that, you know, you don't have to be liked by everyone, you know, as long as they can appreciate what you're doing. And if they aren't, then obviously like that's their own lane, that's fine, you're doing your own thing. But you know, that was a big thing for me as well, in terms of trying to focus more on myself and not what others think of me.
There's a mantra or a book called The Courage to Be Disliked. I think that's so important. In life in general. Not like, don't be a bad person. Just,
don't be disliked by the majority of the population.
Just like 5%. Because not everyone's gonna like you, and you just gotta accept it. Like with potty, like some people just like give shit, but like, you know, I'll take it, but yeah, we'll see how we go.
And honestly, you need that anyways. I think like a little bit of, not negativity, but like it's constructive criticism.
You're never going to gets me fired up.
Exactly. You're never going to grow or be motivated if you're just solely sort of limited to being in a comfortable space, I think.
And to wrap up today, V, like we're kind of midway through 2023.
Crazy.
What are your like main goals, top 3?
Yeah, so funnily enough, I had a vision board at the beginning of the year, which just...
Was it like some massive... Like,
it was. Yeah? I went to Officeworks, I bought this massive, probably the size of like a table, and started just printing out images and sort of writing down my goals. because I just like to visually see them. It keeps me accountable. But funnily enough, the first one was to get more involved in sort of sports journalism, the media world. And actually on that board, I had like secure an internship by end of year. But I had the expectation of perhaps maybe, landing an internship gig at the end of like summer or whatever. So I just didn't expect, when I started that board, which I had made that vision board December, January. And obviously by February, I'd started my internship with Ministry of Sport.
Fast forward now, mid-April, you're like finished
exactly,
it.
And I've gotten sort of a job offer from them. They're a publication based in Brisbane, so I've had the founder sort of fly down. He was here for a sports conference, but I've had a chat with him as well, and they're really keen to have me on, which is really exciting. I've really enjoyed exploring the world of sports business and writing, so we'll see where that goes. But a lot of my other sort of roles which fell under that were sort of volunteering grassroots to get my foot in the door with the sports industry as well, which I will still do. I think there is so much value to volunteering and helping out sporting institutions. So like I've signed up for the FIFA Women's World Cup, which is coming up mid-year.
Oh, yep, July.
I know, very fast approaching, honestly. But I've signed up to volunteer for media for them, so we'll see how that goes scheduling-wise. And there are a lot of like just other great sporting events that are happening in Melbourne that I'm sure I'll try to get myself involved in. Other goals, I guess like academia is something that I guess was really important to me. I was like a self-proclaimed high achiever. Sure. I do really value my academics. I still sort of try to manage uni. I think with the practicality of this course and honestly like how open everyone is, I've come to like honestly like a level of understanding with myself where I don't have to get like the highest grades or whatever, like at least I'm learning, which is honestly good because having high expectations can just be stressful. It can lead to burnout extremely quickly. Not that you shouldn't hold yourself to a higher standard and try to achieve the best that you can, but it's like I'm a lot more understanding with myself. I won't beat myself up over it now. And I think being in the industry or having a little bit of industry experience has taught me that as well. It's not the be all and end all. Like grades aren't everything.
Oh, sucks way back.
Back then in high school.
But now it isn't. Yeah. You realise that quickly.
But no, I think I've learnt a lot more from maybe not getting the most, I guess, like greatest scores in journalism or in my articles, or maybe being critiqued by Josie that I haven't used quote style properly, but that's made me learn, and I do that properly now. So just focusing on, I think work-life balance is like the term I'm looking for. Still managing and doing well in uni, and holding myself to sort of like a merit standard, but also exploring other opportunities and I guess continuing to put myself out there. I think I've said that like 10 times. I keep repeating myself. Putting myself out there, stepping outside my comfort zone, because if history's told me anything, like it's led me to so many great opportunities, like an abundance of offers and just connections that I never would have expected this early on. So well,
we might see you in Brisbane soon.
Oh my god, meet up. Write it in your schedule.
Any final comments, shout outs, people you want to mention?
No, I've really enjoyed doing this. This is actually my first podcast, so
let's go.
Cheers to that.
Won't be your last.
Honestly, I love talking, so now that you've had me on, like I've had a ball. I don't know, shout outs. You put me on the spot here. Shout out to Jerry, I guess, to our 3 years of friendship and finally actually sitting down and talking now. That's all.
That's awesome. No, thanks so much for the chat, V. I'm sure we'll catch up a lot more throughout uni, and let's keep writing.
Thanks.